Hello and welcome to this September episode of Charging Status, the UK and Ireland EV focused podcast brought to you from The Interface. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jim Starling. How are you doing, Jim?
Yeah, good, Alex. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, pretty good. You've got some exciting news this month. I'm looking forward to hearing everything about your new car. So do you want to just tell everyone what you've bought?
Yeah, so I've gone into quite a lot of detail about this on my YouTube channel, so go and check out the videos about it there. But yeah, I've bought a Tesla Model Y, or actually my business has bought a Tesla Model Y, which is going to be my new company car. Yeah, the whole process was quite bizarre. So I literally ordered it online through the Tesla site. It was in stock, which meant I got about £2,000 discount, which I thought was quite good because you'd think actually some people would pay a premium to get one that's in stock, but instead
Yeah,
it was
that's
£2
weird.
grand less. And then I went down to Southampton Docks to collect it, and I've done a separate video on that collection process, which may or may not be out at the time that this podcast episode goes out. But that was an absolutely bizarre experience. It was self-service collection. And basically, spoiler alert, I walk into the place on Southampton Docks after driving past probably 5,000 Teslas, pull into one of their many car parks where the collection centre is, walk up to the car. I get a notification on the app to say, "You've arrived. Have you located the car?" I click, "Yes, I've located the car." It asked me to check the VIN number on the windscreen. Checked the VIN number and said, "Yes, I accept it." It unlocked, and then I drove off.
Wow.
So no
So you didn't speak
interaction
to
with a
any
human.
people?
I did go and speak to someone in the Tesla office. He was a prick, actually. Yeah. I, I did notice. What I didn't film was that I sort of inspected the car quite thoroughly afterwards because, I was expecting to find some sort of ill-fitting panel or a missing charging cable or something. And sure enough, the bumper where it sort of meets the rear quarter wasn't fitted particularly well. So I just went in and said, "Oh, there's a little issue with one of the," and he goes, "On the app." I was like, "What?" He said, "Report it on the app."
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did watch your video, and you just have to report the issues on the phone, don't you? And then someone comes out and sorts it. So pretty good.
Yeah, and I reported it on the phone. That was annoying as well, though. You have to approve like a 70 quid charge, an estimate, say you'll pay 70 quid in case they come out and they want to charge you for it. Obviously, they didn't because it was warranty work. But the guy was out first thing the next morning, took 10 minutes, all sorted. So it's like everything's there, but there are a couple of little bits that could have just been a little bit nicer.
Yeah,
But the car's brilliant. Love it.
That's really good. Yeah, it looks really good. And how many miles have you done so far in it? Have you driven it loads around, or even?
Yeah, not too many, less than 150 probably, because I've had a press car in this week as well. So, yeah, I've had to try and drive that as much as possible.
Awesome. Now looking forward to the content you make on it, and I do love the Tesla vehicles, so it'd be good to hear more about it later on in the year and on the podcast. So pretty good. I very sadly dropped off the Honda E yesterday. So I had a Honda E for a week, and I was very gutted to part ways with that car again.
Yeah.
Because I did about 1,000 miles in it in a week.
Wow.
So yeah. So I sort of got a lot more time with the vehicle than I usually do with vehicles on press loan.
Yeah.
And I just sort of bonded with it, and I was gutted to give it back. But no, it's very, very good. Long journeys in it don't make any sense. I did a 200-mile round trip on some point last week, and it added 2 hours to my journey because I had to charge 4 times. So that car really doesn't make sense for any long journeys. But for I spent a few days in Milton Keynes with it, and oh my god, the charging infrastructure in Milton Keynes is insane. It's this every single place you go to. Obviously, Milton Keynes are full of car parks.
Yeah.
If you're next to a shopping centre, there's 7 kilowatt chargers. There's DC chargers everywhere. I mean, and then while I was there, actually, there was some chargers out of action from BP, and there was a little sign on saying, "We're old, we're 10 years old, or whatever, and we've been replaced." And I went back on Monday, and they were there replacing them all with brand new BP chargers. They're really active. The council, whoever in Milton Keynes, is really active on getting chargers back up and running and putting more in there. So it's really, really good to see. So if you've got an EV,
it's good to
move to Milton Keynes.
Yeah, it's good that BP are on the case as well, because I've never ever managed to get a BP Pulse charger to work.
Oh, really?
And I've probably tried 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they're just always either out of service or they won't connect to your car.
Huh. So weirdly, with the Honda E, I had a major issue with. So when I had it a few months ago, basically there was like an electrical fault on the car. I actually used a Tesla charger on it, and there was the car complained about the voltage or something, and I had that problem again at InstaVolt charger, and I plugged the car in, and it kept making clicking noises, and basically on the Honda E InstaVolt charger, they don't quite work with each other quite right, and you have to hold the charger in, and the pins eventually lock in.
Right.
I did that, and then the car threw up an error, so I had to nurse it home. But no, I actually went to the. We'll cover it. We'll talk about it a bit more in a minute. But they've opened a massive charger location at the NEC up in Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
So I took the Honda E there to film some stuff with it, and I must have charged the car about 5 different times, getting different shots, and every single time it worked really well. Mm-hmm. Instantly worked. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe the new BP chargers are a lot better than the old ones, but
yeah, I guess they wouldn't have replaced them so quickly if they were salvageable. I wouldn't have thought. You'd think it would be sort of upgrade or maintain rather than just wholesale replace. So I'd imagine that they've just failed in a big way, and they've decided to put some decent ones in instead.
But yeah, no, they work pretty well. So that's what I'm driving, the Honda E. But I was there's a review coming out for it probably tomorrow, I think. So
cool.
What have you been driving?
I've had the GV60 Sport Plus, which is the 0 to 62 in 4 seconds version of the GV60, and that's a lovely thing. The the review for that's already out on my channel, so you can go and check that out if you want to see it. The only thing I would say sort of negative about it, well, 2 things really. The GV60 in general has a slightly smaller boot than the EV6 and the Ioniq 5. Just the car's fractionally shorter than its 2, brothers stroke sisters, whatever you want to call them. And it would be nice if it didn't. It would be nice if it was the same size, really. Secondly, the interior, although it's really nice and really good quality, it's not as good as on other Genesis cars. So if you've driven anything else Genesis and you then get into a GV60, it somehow feels like almost a step down from the other cars in the range. But if you've only driven an EV6 and Ioniq 5 and you get into a GV60, it feels like a big step up.
Yeah, I noticed. I came in and saw you when you had it on loan, and you pointed out there's some plastic bits in it which look like metal, which was a bit disheartening, especially that price it is as well. It's quite expensive. So
I'd completely forgotten, but you actually were with me when I did the review for the first time, weren't you? And I didn't actually use any of that footage in the end, but yeah,
I was in the back seat when you floored it. So
yeah. The other annoying thing is the placement of the USB sockets and the fact that you still don't have wireless CarPlay or Android Auto, and the USB sockets are in the same place as in the Ioniq 5, which is a bit of a daft position because it's sort of right under the dash at the very bottom. But aside from that, yeah, lovely thing. And I've just had the MG5 for a week. That was really nice, like a big upgrade from the outgoing model, I would say, in terms of the interior quality and the layout and everything. Nothing really bad to say about it other than the fact that the steering is so numb it's almost been anesthetized. But yeah, aside from that, great car. And a lot of people that are buying that car are not going to mind a bit of numb steering, in fairness.
No. Do you think so? When I had the MG4, I was a bit disappointed with the quality in some places. Do you think it's a better quality vehicle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As a one-word answer, yes. It feels a lot more premium than an MG4.
That's good. That's good. Awesome. We already spoke about your new Model Y as well. So, going to jump straight into the big news for this month. We got as I mentioned, we got the BP charging station at the NEC. So this new station opened just last week, and there's 180 chargers there, which I felt I thought that was bizarre, and sort of that's huge, a huge amount of chargers and such a massive investment as well. So on the paper it sounds really good, but what it actually is there's 30 super fast chargers there, which are 150 kilowatts each. And then what they've done is they've got every other one has a CHAdeMO. So these DC fast chargers, they've got 2 CCS each, and then every other one has a CHAdeMO as well as. And the main point of this hub is the fact that there's 157 kilowatt chargers, and what you can do is if you're visiting the NEC for the day, you can book one of those spaces and then charge your car slowly over the day. I saw a bunch of comments online saying that, oh, that's pointless. There's not many fast chargers there, but the whole point is that you'll go in there and you know that you can charge your car over the day, and the NEC is somewhere you're going to spend like maybe a day or two. So
yeah, you're not going to go for 10 minutes, are you, to the NEC?
No.
And of course, exactly. Charging your car slowly is a lot better for the battery than fast charging. So
yes,
the convenience of fast charging is brilliant when you need it, but if you don't need it, you really want to charge slowly.
Yeah, and it's in a really good place. So it basically serves the M6 and the M42, and it's just off the 2 junctions for that place. And then what there is there's a Starbucks on site, so we've got a drive-through Starbucks there, so you can, if you do need to rapid charge, you can go and get a coffee or something. So
yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
Do you know how much it costs?
It was 83p a kilowatt hour for the super fast chargers, and then 59p for the slow ones. So yeah. Over the last week, I've charged the Honda E a lot, and I've come across lots of very varying charging rates. I mean, just looking at videos from this time last year, the charging rates for most chargers have doubled basically, or just under doubled, which is just insane. So that needs to. It's just so expensive to charge.
Yeah, that's one of the good things on the Tesla, actually. Like if you use a supercharger, and I mean, you have to pay $10 a month for their connectivity pack, where you basically get Wi-Fi in the car. It gives you access to some other apps and a few other things, but you also get preferential rates when you're charging. So to use a supercharger, it's like 34, 35p a kilowatt hour, which is
that's perfect.
5p more than I pay at home. So
yeah, that's really good.
Unfortunately,
if you haven't got a Tesla
away from a supercharger, but never mind.
If you haven't got a Tesla, you can use normal cars at some chargers, and then I think you can pay £10 a month to get the same rates as you would. So if you want that,
I'm against that. By the way, one of the reasons I got a Tesla is for this Tesla network. So I'd rather they didn't open it up to anyone else.
Yeah. And most of the chargers I saw at different points last week, the Tesla ones, they're always basically free. There's not. I guess because it charges so quickly, you don't have to spend as long there, and because it doesn't take as long to sort the charging out, the friction for that is good. So
Tesla are quite good at the busy sites as well, of restricting you to an 80% charge, and then you get overstay charges quite quickly. So if you get to 80% and then just leave your car sitting in the parking space for a quarter of an hour, they're going to charge you handsomely for that.
That's quite good. So so just back to this BP charging hub. It's called a Giga Hub, and I sort of hope that we're going to see more of these, because you need some sort of huge charging station at good locations that you can get a charge at, not just some lonely little charger. There's one of them in some random car park somewhere. So
yeah, one of the press drivers was telling me the other day that there's one at Exeter now, and I think it's
Yes.
GridServe and maybe Superchargers as well, and
Okay.
something else. And they've got a
Yeah,
queuing
I've
system
seen
and
that one.
everything, and it all works really nicely.
Yeah, I think Osprey have opened one in Devon somewhere as well.
Okay.
I think it's near a farm shop. I think there's 30 chargers, which is really good. So awesome. Next bit of news we got is the new Tesla Model 3. So this was announced earlier this month. I love the look of this car. The only thing I don't like on it is the indicator stalks. I'm not sure how that would work, especially in this country. We've got so many roundabouts and things. But what do you think, as a new Tesla owner, what do you think about the new Model 3?
Yeah, so I think they're subtle changes really, but I think they make a big difference to the way the car looks. It looks far less froggy than it did, and it's a definite improvement. A little bit disappointed. I know they've made it's now got a longer range because they've sort of increased the aerodynamism of the car and therefore the efficiency. But it would have been nice to see maybe a little bit of upgrade in battery technology. I know they've gone to some different interior materials and different way of building the interior, which will cut their costs a bit. So I think it's only going to go up by about £1,000 is the guess. The indicator stalk thing is ridiculous, and whoever came up with that idea should be put into a cannon and fired directly into the sun. But I don't have strong opinions on it. I just think it's just so stupid. Like, just give us a stalk. There are almost no buttons in the car already.
Yeah.
One stalk to control flashing the headlights and indicators and what have you. Come on.
I know. I'm not sure if Ferrari is still doing it, but I remember when the 458 was launched, that had the buttons on it, and at the time, everyone's like, "This is just ridiculous." Because if you're turning right, you got to work out in your brain, and then look at the steering wheel, and then probably crash. So
yeah,
I'm not sure. Obviously, no one's really people have used it, but not enough yet. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's a good idea, really.
And they're haptics as well, aren't they? So that's even worse.
Yeah, sort of moving to what the ID3 has a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like the design of it and the fact that they've managed to squeeze a bit more range out of it without changing anything specifically. So the rear-wheel drive Tesla now has 40 more miles of range. So got 344 now. It was 305. And then the long-range one has now gone over 400 miles. It's now got 421 versus 394. It's still got the same sort of charging speed, same battery, as you said. They've changed the screen a little bit, so it's still 15 inches, but the bezels are slightly smaller. But it's got the same GPU and CPU controlling it all, so it's still that bit. And then it's also got a rear screen. So with the Model S refresh, we saw a rear screen which you can watch Netflix on it and stuff, and also control the air conditioning system. So we've now got that on the Model 3. So it will come to the UK next year, but it may be available as soon as October in some markets, which is pretty good. So
yeah,
pretty cool. So we have a little chat about Onto as well. So
yeah. So the news is just broken that Onto have basically gone into administration. They had a subscriber base of 20,000 customers and a fleet of 7,000 EVs. That's a weird disparity between those two numbers. So I'm guessing they didn't have 20,000 active customers, or 13,000 of them didn't have a car. So they probably would have been quite upset. But yeah, they had a fleet of 7,000 EVs. Legal & General were a big backer of it, and they've pulled their funding out. If you don't know, Legal & General, one of the biggest sort of pension providers and insurance companies in the UK. They're actually one of the biggest property owners in the UK, and they're a substantial landowner, and they take all your pension money and invest it into things like Onto that then go into administration. They said Onto has suffered from steep fall in electric vehicle residual value in the first half of 2023, rising interest rates, and the squeeze on disposable income. and was unable to secure additional funding from its shareholders. Now, it seemed to me like it was a business probably built on venture capital money. I don't really know, but from the outside looking in, a business that scales so quickly sort of comes to market as a huge thing immediately and is spending what must have been millions on marketing. That looks like a business that's funded entirely with other people's money. And sometimes businesses find it easy to spend money when it's other people's money. And if they take the gamble and it doesn't pay off, this happens. So it's not a huge surprise. I don't think it was very cheap either. They always said it was cheaper than leasing, but some of the figures that they sort of quoted in some of the marketing were a bit spurious. I obviously used it for a month. They gave me a car for a month. It was brilliant. It all worked perfectly well, very slick, no issues with it. But had I been paying £500 a month for a Fiat 500e, I would have felt like it was quite a lot of money.
Yeah. I think we discussed maybe last episode, the episode before. I think I was asking you, I was saying like, what happens to EVs? The fact that they lose so much value. Who fronts that cost? The fact that a new EV might cost 40 grand, and then you lease it for a bit, and it's on the market for like below 20. And this is obviously one of the problems. The fact that it's not practical. I guess that money has to be paid somewhere, and it obviously was, and it's caused this problem. So
yeah, if they've bought say 7,000 EVs at say 40 grand each, and they were expecting them to be worth 25 grand after 3 years, and actually they're only worth 18, they've got 7,000 of them. So that's a big shortfall.
Yeah, so hopefully there'll be some really, really good bargains online at some point once this fleet gets sold off. So you might see some cheap Fiat 500Es possibly. So
it's funny as well because their fleet, when you look at it, it's like they'd exclusively pick the cars that were going to depreciate the most. They tended to be cars with smaller range, tended to be the sort of less exotic stuff. You could get a Tesla from them, and I think you could get a Polestar, but no one did really. I think people were getting the Renault Zoes and the Fiat 500Es and those kind of things primarily.
Yeah, so the website's still up and running, so you can see how much stuff was. They had the 500 electric for $360 a month. That was covered in Onto branding, and then if you don't want the branding, it was like $490. And then if you wanted a Model Y, the long range, it was £1,200 a month.
Jeez.
So yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, you're right. So you got the Vauxhall stuff in here. You got the DS3 is one of them. That DS3 is plummeted in value.
And the Corsa
on the used market. Oh yeah, I saw a post on Twitter the other day. It was comparing a used e-Corsa to a normal petrol Corsa, and they're roughly the same price, like a couple £100 in it, and they're about the same age as well. So it's just lost so much value. It's crazy.
Except one started life at 20 grand, one started life at 35 grand. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So hopefully something can happen to the fleet, and we might get some used deals. So at the moment, it says potential bidders for this asset are expected to be contacted in the next few days. So you're right. There was a lot of money raised for it. So it said more than $350 million was raised to fund its growth. That's a heck of a lot of money. So
yeah, and so much of that would have gone on marketing.
Yeah,
and if that's not spent correctly, then that's the end of it. Never see it back.
Yeah.
The other thing that could stimulate further drops in used EV pricing is the number of company cars that are coming back or will be sort of finishing their leases in the next 12 months. I think that's why we've seen prices drop so much, because that demand for EVs is completely false. It's not that Joe Public wants to go and buy one. It's that necessarily, well, not that everyone does. It's that company car drivers all suddenly went from paying 4 or 5 grand a year company car tax on their diesels, sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's a case of, well, you can have this EV and pay 300 quid a year instead. So they've all gone over to EVs for the tax savings, really. So I think it's almost like a false demand. And obviously the result of that false demand is that at the end of 3-4 years, all these EVs suddenly come into the used market. So I think it's going to drop further still.
Very interesting, because that might help stimulate growth with the public as well. Because at the moment, you can't really pick up. It's just for a lot of people, it is really expensive.
Yeah, but once you could get one for 15
so-
grand or something
Exactly.
with a decent range, and then loads of people would have one.
Yep. And that sort of lends nicely into the next topic. We've got a report from the SMMT. In July 2022, we had just over 12,000 electric vehicles registered. And then July this year, it was 23,000 electric vehicles. That's a massive, massive jump. And it does say here, based on what you've said as well, it says most of the growth is coming from fleet sales, with those kind of orders amounting to 80,000 vehicles, a rise of around 63%. For the same time in 2022, so it's business stuff, isn't it? So
yeah, because it makes no sense to get a petrol or diesel car anymore if you're a company car driver. I mean, it's just hideous the amount they tax you on it, where you can get an EV and pay a few £100 a year.
Does that same benefit apply to hybrids? Because I know it used to, or plug-in hybrids.
So it's not as bad if you get a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, but they are taxed a lot more than a full sort of battery electric vehicle. Plug-in hybrids, that is. A standard hybrid you'll probably be at the lower end of petrol numbers. But yeah, plug-in hybrids are cheaper for company car tax, but it depends on how many miles they can do on EV, on battery power alone. That's how it's part of how it's calculated. And then the actual cost of the vehicle as well. And of course, with a lot of plug-in hybrids, they're considerably more expensive. A lot of them are not very good on battery range only. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, got one more bit of long-form news coming up. So I was a bit surprised about this announcement. So it's the Mustang Mach-E Rally. And obviously this sort of lends itself to the rally car that Ford have made for it as well, so the official rally car. So it's kind of like a homologation car a little bit, but kind of not. But it's just a really ultra powerful four-wheel drive, stiffened, brazed version of the electric Mustang Mach-E. I'm not really sure who's going to buy it, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's anything like the standard Mach-E. Pretty much anyone that test drives one probably won't buy it. I don't know if you've driven one yet, but
No.
To be fair, Ford are quite good at doing software updates. But I drove one last September, I think, and it was the worst EV driving experience I've had. It was just horrible. It was there was nothing good about the drive of it. The accelerator's like an on-off switch, and you just couldn't comfortably just sort of cruise at 30 in it. It was like on off. It was a horrible thing, and I was completely unimpressed by it. It disappointed me more than the ID3, and the ID3 disappointed me quite a lot.
Oh no.
Yeah.
As you mentioned with the software, I think Ford are probably, apart from Tesla, probably the next best company doing software based on what I've heard.
Yeah.
They've invested a lot of money. There's been a lot of interviews with Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, and said that they've got a whole company within the company now that just does software for the cars. He's just said they were surprised at how difficult it would have been, or difficult it was to do the software for the cars. So hopefully, in the year that you've test driven it, it's improved a lot. But
I think it's had a couple of updates since then, at least. So, and I'm with something like that in an electric car. I mean, it's all fixable with software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this new rally version, it's not confirmed whether it's going to be a limited edition yet, and it will go on sale in the UK in early 2024. And again, there's no information about the pricing at all yet. But it's sort of equivalent in power to the GT Mustang Mach-E. So we've got 487 brake horsepower. It is raised by 20 mil. Now we've got custom springs, custom shock absorbers, these massive off-road Michelin tires, and then gloss 19-inch wheels. Definitely eye-catching. And there's also a new Rally Sport mode, which apparently has better grip on loose surfaces. But apart from a styling thing, as I said, I'm not really sure who will buy it. But
yeah, it does look cool. And you'd think if they go into those lengths to make something and calling it Rally, you'd think they make it drive properly. But I thought they'd have made a car with a Mustang on the front of it drive properly in the first place. So yeah, remains to be seen.
Next, we've got some deals I found on Auto Trader. So in preparing the show notes, most of these deals are actually gone now, which is quite a good sign. The guess that people are still buying EVs. But one of the deals I found is still available. It's a Jaguar I-Pace. This is a 2019 reg, and it's done 35,000 miles. And new on the new market, these are about 70 to 80,000 pounds. And this one here is just over or just under 23,000 pounds. And I think that's quite a good deal, really. It obviously isn't the refreshed model, so it's got a slightly older infotainment system because the new one's been refreshed a little bit. But what do you think about that? That looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just huge depreciation, isn't it? And as a buyer on the used market, then that's the thing you want to see, really, is that it's lost most of its value already. I haven't driven one, but a friend of mine's recently got one. It's a really, really nice car, like a lovely thing. And obviously the acceleration and stuff's ridiculous in them. They do feel like they're very well screwed together. I don't know if they've got those JLR reliability issues or not. And I did hear a thing or two about the range being a work of fiction when they first came onto the scene. But yeah, but to drop, I mean, nearly 50 grand on a 2019 car. Yeah, as a used proposition, it's an interesting one. I think the other one that really pops out to me at the moment is the Corsa E, which, they started off 35 grand, 32 grand. I think you could, I think now if you go for a top spec one, they're about 38. You can get 2021 with 35,000 miles on it for 13 grand.
Wow. And actually, I have noticed I do see quite a lot of them on the road now, a lot more than usual. So
when you think you haven't even got to MOT that car for another year.
No.
It's like
pretty decent.
It's, as you were saying earlier, it's like 1 litre petrol price for an EV.
Yeah. The other deal that is still there, but it's been reserved by someone, but it's just to highlight the price drop. So Mustang Mach-E, the standard range, £51,000 brand new. This one's £31,000. It's only done 15,000 miles. So that's quite a good bargain if you're into the market for a Mustang Mach-E.
Yeah. For that same money, though, you could get a 2021, probably get a long range Model 3.
Yeah, it's probably a lot better car than that. So
yeah, I'd say so.
Last week, I sat down with Nate from FreeWire. So FreeWire reached out to me last week or the week before and said, we'd love to have Nate on the show to talk about their chargers they've got in America, as well as the NACS chargers as well. So over in the US, a lot of manufacturers are now adopting Tesla's own charging standard. So I guess in the US now, they're going to move away from CCS. So I spoke to Nate for about 10 minutes about what FreeWire do, their charging stations, because they're quite unique. They've got batteries built in to help reduce the load on chargers, and also the NACS chargers. We've got a special interview for the Charging Status podcast. I'm joined by Nate from FreeWire, and he's going to talk about what they do in terms of charging networks, and also some of the information about the NACS charging status that Tesla have allowed everyone else to use. So welcome, Nate. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, very good, thank you. So thanks for agreeing to come on the podcast. Obviously, this is a short segment for the show. So just give me a little information about what FreeWire does, and obviously this podcast is coming from the UK's perspective. So I've never actually heard of the company before. So just give me some information about what you guys do.
Sure. So we're a innovative provider of ultra-fast charging technologies based in California. And what we do is build battery integrated fast chargers. So the idea is that we can deploy our ultra-fast chargers in more locations at lower cost than any of the traditional or what we call kind of legacy fast chargers that are out there today.
Okay, and then you got chargers all across the US or just in one area or?
We do. We have chargers in North America, so we're U.S. and Canada is our largest footprint. We're also starting to expand into Europe, so we have a few units in the UK, starting to make some headway in places like Spain and Italy. We have a unit in Belgium, more units coming online in the Netherlands. So we're starting to expand into Europe now.
Okay, that's good. And you mentioned the fact that they got batteries built into the chargers themselves. I've not seen that. That is right, isn't it? They've got batteries inside the
Right.
actual units themselves, and that's to what purpose does that give you? Does that give you better charging speeds for people charging at like peak times, or just want to explain a little bit about that?
It's going to help with the strain on the utility grid and the infrastructure, which is one of the biggest
Hmm.
challenges with deploying ultra fast charging, right? If you think about a traditional grocery store, if you put one ultra fast charger outside of your grocery store, you can basically double the size of your grid demand from what the utility sees. So it's a really big
Hmm.
challenge for utilities and for also for charge point operators who want to deploy charging. So what the batteries in our charger allow us to do is basically reduce that strain on the grid by a factor of 10 in terms of what we need from the grid versus what we deliver to vehicles.
I'm guessing off peak the batteries just slowly charge up to a sustained level again, and you can output
Yep.
what you need, I guess.
It helps with both the
Cool.
demand charges and the energy charges of operating an ultra fast charger.
Hmm. Interesting. I know. Yeah, I've not seen that sort of thing done before, so that's pretty good. And then roughly how much? So if you had someone rock up with a quite high capacity car, for example, um, how quickly could that battery pack get depleted before it has to charge up slowly again? If that makes sense.
It's pretty resilient. So we have 160 kilowatt hours in our charger itself. And then we have about 20
Okay.
kilowatts coming from the grid, which is passed through to the vehicle. So if you think about a traditional charging session where you use about, what we see on the average is about 30 kilowatt hours over 30 minutes. In that time frame, we're contributing about 10 of those from the grid and 15 from, or 20, sorry, from the battery pack in our unit. So over 30 minutes, we've lost 20 of our 160 kilowatt hours. So you can do that, multiple times back to back without really depleting our unit. And we've seen units in the field that can do 12 to 15 charging sessions in a day without depleting our battery pack.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So it's pretty resilient, and so that's good. And I just want to talk about a little bit about the Tesla charging standard. So over in the UK and Europe, we haven't even seen this. I don't think it's something we're even going to get, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we got the CCS chargers. So Tesla made some pretty big headway. So they sort of launched that charger probably got to be about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And only very recently has every other manufacturer sort of agreed to take it on. And I think the whole story is that they were pushed to adopt it, to allow everyone else to adopt it. And it's quite interesting to see all the other manufacturers sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do this." And have you had to adapt the existing chargers you've got to support this standard? And what's that process been like?
Yeah, it's been quite a hectic year for the industry in the U.S. So it all started in late last year when Tesla essentially released the standard for their plug, which they call the North American Charging Standard. They just published the specification online and said anyone who wants to implement this can from the vehicle side or the charger side. From our perspective, we just want to provide the most reliable charging infrastructure. So we kind of followed the demand from the vehicle side. So we started looking into it, but we were sort of waiting to see how things were going to play out. A few months ago, probably in June or so of this year, Ford took the first step and announced that they were going to move all of their vehicles to the NACS plug natively in their vehicles by 2025 in the US. And between now and then, they're going to produce a adapter, essentially, a dongle that goes
Yeah.
between the existing Ford vehicles and allows the Ford vehicles to access the Tesla supercharger network in the US, which Tesla has far and away the largest network of ultra-fast chargers in the US. So that sort of set things in motion. GM followed suit, and now, I mean, the list just continues to grow of OEMs who in the US are going to move to the North American charging standard. So for FreeWire, we're looking at doing this and installing this on our chargers sort of from the factory starting next year, and then we'll look into retrofitting as well as and when we need to.
Yeah, so I guess judging by some of the chargers I've had a look at, you've got CHAdeMO and CCS. So the CHAdeMO one's just the Leaf, really.
Right.
And then you've got will you end up having 3 different chargers on each charger itself, or you end up removing one, or what's the plan for that?
We will move away from CHAdeMO next year and essentially replace CHAdeMO with the NACS connector.
Okay. Yeah, because I think here in the UK, the only one that does use it is the Nissan Leaf, and I think that's probably the same case for you guys as well.
Yes. It's just the Nissan Leaf at this point, and what we see in the US with most deployments is, let's say you have 10 plugs at a charging station. One of them is going to be CHAdeMO, the rest are going to be CCS, right? And as we move forward, you'll start to see probably the same amount of CHAdeMO being installed, or even less, and more of a mix of CCS and NACS at a given location.
Okay. And then in terms of sort of the kilowatt hour price, are you guys quite competitive in that area, or is it, what sort of the average price per kilowatt hour you guys charge?
So FreeWire is not the charge point operator in most cases. So we're enabling our customers to be the charge point operators. So they're in control of the pricing. The average pricing, I would say, there's a pretty wide range from what I've seen, based on different utility rates that are in play, different strategies that different charge point operators employ. But I'd say on average, maybe 45 to 65 cents per kilowatt hour is sort of what we typically see.
Okay, it's pretty decent. Yeah, I think that's all I've got, really, if that's okay. Just a short interview, yeah.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Nate, for joining me for this interview as part of the Charging Status podcast. You can find more information about FreeWire at freewiretech.com. And thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Cool, that was quite a good interview. And then we got the lightning round now. So we've got a few stories to bang through. And the first one is BYD are going to get rid of the Build Your Dreams slogan after people complained about it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's so naff, isn't it? The one thing that everyone says is, like, can you have the badges removed from the back? And they didn't have it as an option to have Build Your Dreams removed from the back. And that'd be the first thing I did if I got one, is get some dental floss and get rid of that Build Your Dreams. BYD sounds fine. It sounds like a car company. Build Your Dreams sounds like an awful sort of slogan thing that you buy from the range to put on your bathroom wall to inspire 100%. You whilst you're defecating. It doesn't need to be on the back of a car.
Oh, God. Yeah. So they're going to remove it as standard now. I don't think you can even spec it. But unfortunately, the way they designed the Dolphin, they've sort of embossed it into the bodywork. They're not going to take that off it. But the Atto 3 and the upcoming Seal and Seal U as well will have the badges removed. So
I'm going to drive the Dolphin next week, by the way.
Have to let us know what that's like. Sounds good.
I shall.
Next, we've got the MG4 will be built in Europe. SAIC own MG, and they've said that the MG4 will be built in Europe. It isn't clear whether or not they'll actually be in the UK. I very much doubt it, but MG do own the Longbridge plant near Birmingham. But interestingly, the MG4 is actually really popular in the UK, so that might sway them to start building it in this country, but the location hasn't been said yet. So
there's a few sort of manufacturing deals coming to the UK now. I know there are some other countries putting in decent bids for it, so I don't know if we will get it, but it's good that there have been some good news stories about cars being manufactured in the UK going forwards.
Yeah, it's quite good. The the head of MG Europe has given some insight into it. He said that production costs will be significantly more expensive than it is in China, so maybe the MG4 might go up in price a little bit, which would reduce its sort of glow a little bit. So
yeah,
we shall see. And then while we're talking about MG, we've also got a new MG4 model. So this was launched in August. Did we talk about this? Oh no, that's right.
Yeah, we talked about the quick one
trophy.
No, they're doing the they've done like a hot hatch version, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. X-Power.
Yeah, that's right. Last month we recorded a bit earlier than usual, so I got confused with that. So while on the subject of MG, we've also got a new extended range MG4 model. So this is based on the trophy. So you get the little spoiler and all the nice bits of the trophy, but it's got a much larger battery pack. It's now 74.4 kilowatt hours. That means you'll get 323 miles of range from the MG4, which is really good. So it's good to see that they're sort of expanding the range a little bit. It's going to be £36,000 in the UK.
Let's hope they put a heat pump in it in the UK.
Yeah. I didn't realise it didn't have one. That's not... So that's... Just for reference, the heat pump makes it more efficient, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, otherwise it's got to basically drain the batteries to heat everything and for preconditioning the battery before charging, all that kind of stuff. So if you remember, when I had the SE long range in the winter, the claimed range on it was almost half in reality, simply because it was really cold. And that's the way it goes. And if you go onto the MG owners forums, and someone that watches my channel is a participant in that, Les Burrows, Les will attest to the fact that there are known range issues with them, largely caused by the cold weather. And in other markets, they've got heat pumps, but we don't have them here.
That makes no sense.
No, even just have it as an option, make it a cost option. Say it's £1,000 if you want a heat pump. I'd have one. Yeah. But for me, I mean, I've just bought a new EV, and I would not have considered buying one without a heat pump. So that immediately writes that off. If I had have been able to get one with a heat pump, maybe I'd looked at something like an MG5 for like the family car, or
Yeah. Especially in this country, we've got such a wide spectrum of temperatures. We get really, really cold and quite hot a lot of times. So I don't know why they haven't done that. So, oh well. They got the pricing revealed for the new e:Ny1 Honda. This is going to be Honda's second electric car, and it's going to be from just under £45,000 in the UK, which to me that sounds quite a lot.
Yeah, I think it's very punchy for not a massive Honda electric car. That's more than the Model Y, more than a Polestar 2. It's very, very punchy, I think.
Yeah. And it isn't even... So the Honda E was a bespoke electric vehicle, and this isn't even a bespoke electric car. It's actually built on top of the HR-V.
Yeah, and it looks just like an HR-V, doesn't it?
It does. And when I dropped the Honda E off with Honda yesterday, I saw quite a few of them ready to go out and stuff. It looks quite interesting. It looks quite large, really. Also the charging speeds on it. So it only charges at 78 kilowatts, which that should have been 100 really, because most electric cars, the minimum now is 100. And there is some of the features from the Honda in there. So we've got the sort of the large amount of screens in there, but I think that price point, not quite. That's not going to be very competitive, I don't think.
Yeah, it feels like it needs to be 10 grand cheaper.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But there is that. I mean, Honda has that sort of die-hard, loyal fan base that will only ever buy Honda and consider nothing else. But it's a different kettle of fish when you get to EVs, really, isn't it? Because they should all be reliable.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think they'll sell enough of them, but again, not many of them. And I think the fault of it will be the price. But It is more expensive than a lot of other electric cars in the same sort of boat, especially even the Model Y is cheaper than this. So we've also got the new ID GTI, and when this came out, I really, really love this. So I've got a Volkswagen GTI myself, and it's one thing I really, really like. And I'm glad they're sticking with the GTI name, because it was going to be, at some point, they were going to use GTX going forward. And this is sort of going to be based on the ID2 when that comes out in 2026. But this concept car looks really, really cool. What do you think about this?
It looks amazing. I think it's what the ID3 should have been, because it looks like an old Golf, basically. The wheels on it are absolute genius. If you look at those wheels, that is an awesome piece of design, and it's an exciting VW. And I haven't been excited by a VW for too long now.
Yeah. And it's going to have, they haven't given much specs on it yet, but there's been quite a few people. This was announced at the Munich Motor Show last week. So there's been quite a few people on YouTube getting walkarounds of it. The interior doesn't work. There isn't an interior available yet, because that's just a clay model. But apparently it's going to have a large battery. That's large battery in quotations. Will likely be bigger than 56 kilowatt hours. It's front wheel drive. It's going to have over 200 horsepower in theory, 250 miles of range. But I like that they're going back to enthusiast cars a little bit with electric stuff.
Definitely. Which is what it should be. Like VW obviously originally started off as Hitler's dream, but after that, it was kind of that. I mean, VW's built itself on the huge enthusiast sort of movement, and there aren't too many other brands really where you can go to a huge car show that's just that brand. Ford do it, but that's about it. And VW are the kings of that. I mean, there are certain scenes, like I've said it before, but you go down to Bournemouth Beach and everyone with a surfboard's got a VW van. That's just the law. And and I feel like the cars they've been producing in more recent times have lacked a bit of that, lacked a bit of something that people are really going to buy into. And certainly this latest batch of issues with infotainment systems and controls for certain things haven't helped that at all. And I think they do need to sort of pivot a bit. And I mean, they've got the ID Buzz now, which is, a great thing. It's a car that people are excited by. And I think, although it does have some of those infotainment issues, folks, this could be the kind of the platform that makes them wanted again, almost. Because like when I grew up, back when dinosaurs roamed the lands, people had pictures of Ferraris and Lamborghinis on their walls, but they all wanted a VW. I think if you ask the current generation of kids, certainly like my daughter's age group of friends, like 11-year-olds, they're all interested in Teslas, and it's just a whole different. It's a different world, and I think that you'd be talking to them for a long time before they mentioned a VW. And this is something people are going to be excited by, I think. But what do I know?
Let's hope so. The pricing for it's going to be, so the ID2 base model is going to be targeted around 22 grand, and the GTI version should be around 26 grand. And if that's the case, that'd be really good. And that's actually less than the current Polo GTI, because the current Polo GTI is quite an expensive car at the moment. So
I just can't see that happening. I mean, it'd be great if it does. It would be absolutely groundbreaking if it did happen. But I just think that seems like nonsense.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But good on them for doing something quite interesting again. So
yeah, definitely.
And then the last bit of news we've got is Seat. So we sort of knew this was coming a little bit. There's some murmurings of it happening, and the fact that Cupra are going to replace Seat. But Seat have announced that they're no longer going to produce any cars at some point this decade. So the Seat brand itself won't go away. They've got that Mo 125 electric motorbike out. I think that's how you pronounce it. And Seat will pivot into become more of a mobility brand, and then Cupra will be the future of Seat, they've said. And I don't know about you, but I've seen so many Cupras on the road, and they look like they're quite popular. So I sort of moved away from Seat a little bit.
Yeah, one of my buddies has got the Leon. I reviewed it actually on my channel, and that's great. Unfortunately, it's got that VW infotainment system, but the build quality of it's great. I think it feels nicer in areas than in a brand new Audi, which is saying something, and certainly better than a number of modern VWs. But it's a little bit sad about say it because I think the Leon's always been a really, really good car and often overlooked in favour of the Golf or the Octavia. All essentially the same car, but the Leon's actually been a really good car, and they obviously have things like the Alhambra, which are things that lots of people stopped producing much longer ago. And there's still a market for stuff like that, even though no one's currently fulfilling it. But yeah, I guess they know what they're doing. So I could even see it. I could even see them using it maybe for commercial vehicles or something. Because it's a brand that people know, and they've spent years building that brand. So just to stick it on sort of mopeds and stuff seems a little bit of a waste, maybe.
Yeah. And Cupra have been building their brand a little bit over the last probably 5 years, I think. They got the Formentor, that's quite well priced, and I do see a lot of those around. And we've also got the Cupra Born. Yeah. I got the Cupra Born, which is based on the ID3, and I do see quite a lot of those around as well. So we shall see what happens. But this isn't, for those worried, it isn't going to be Volkswagen Group moving away from Spain. They said that they'll be investing 10 billion euros into a new electric battery factory in Valencia, which is good. So the fact they're not abandoning Spain, which is quite good of them. So cool. That's all the news we got for this month. Thanks for listening and watching to this episode of the Charging Status Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. For a full description of this show, visit the episode link in the show notes, and of course, check out the chapters complete with images to make your listening experience much more enjoyable. We also have an ad-free premium version of this show available on Apple Podcasts that will help support this episode and future podcasts from The Interface. Jim has a book out all about used cars. Be sure to check that out. It's a great read. Link is in the show notes. Thanks again, Jim, for joining me on this show. Where can people find you online?
So I'm on YouTube and Facebook at Definitely Not a Guru. I'm on Twitter, or X as it's now called, at Not a Guru 3, and on Instagram at Not a Guru Jim.
Fantastic.
Oh, and I'm on TikTok as something else. I don't know.
Are you allowed to be on there? Are you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I got special permission for the elderly because I'm awesome. Yeah,
fair enough. Can't deny that.
The easiest place to find me is to go on my website, notaguru.co.uk, and all my links are there.
Fantastic. You can find The Interface at theinterface.uk. Links are in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.